Okay, well, let's get started. So thanks for joining us today. We're thrilled to be able to welcome you to Responsible Disruption and our first Innovation Table Zoomcast. My name is James Gamage, and I'm the Director of Innovation and the Social Impact Lab at the United Way of Calgary and area.
And I'm Monique Blau, and I'm the Director of Strategy and Design in the lab and at J5, a Calgary-based innovation and design firm. We're excited to welcome our guests and to discuss the importance of innovation in times of change. Just before we get started, we have a few housekeeping items to cover. We are currently recording this session, and if you'd like to share it with your colleagues or friends, we'll be emailing a link in the next couple of days. You'll also be able to find this recording on our YouTube channel. We're also excited to have our next Innovation Table episode already planned for next week on April 15th at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We'll be featuring Beena Patel, and our topic of conversation will focus on creating a culture of possibility. For the agenda today, we'll do some quick introductions. We'll use a table conversation style, and finally, we'll have some time for live Q&A. If you'd like to ask a question along the way, you can do so by clicking the QA button in your Zoom panel. We'll be collecting these throughout the session today, and we'll answer as many as we can before the end.
So we'd like to welcome and introduce our guests for today. So we have Connor Curran, who is the co-owner of Local Laundry here in Calgary, Trevor Wills, who's partner at Boost Energy Ventures Incorporated, and Beth Gignac, who's the Chief Operating Officer at United Way, Calgary and area.
We'd like to begin by telling you a bit about the lab. The Social Impact Lab is a partnership between J5 and the United Way of Calgary and area. In the lab, we address issues that matter to Calgarians, issues that affect all the citizens, things such as poverty, children and youth mental health, and community well-being. Our social ecosystem is being disrupted, and there's a constant demand for new ideas, solutions, products, and services. And the demand for this support continues to outpace the supply of funding and services. So we in the lab and through our partnerships are responding to this disruption by investing in innovation and creating important strategic partnerships that support the social ecosystem in the sector to not only serve, but to solve the social issues that affect us all.
So what are we talking about today? So the Social Impact Lab is creating a new platform called Responsible Disruption. So responsible disruption is about being aware that we don't want to create disruption for the sake of disruption. We want change to systems, models, and people to be fair, considered, and compelling so that it has the greatest impact on the places in which we live. We are now almost 4 weeks into the double whammy of the COVID-19 lockdown and plummeting oil prices, which have had a profound impact to the Calgary economy and social support infrastructures and systems in which individuals, non-profits, and social businesses operate. Literally overnight, business models, distribution channels, supply chains, and service delivery have had to be rethought, and this in the face of increasing demand from the community for solutions. Longer term, this will have a profound impact on the local, national, and global systems that we operate in. At the United Way Social Impact Lab, we want to convene a series of discussions about our response to what is going on right now, how we build recovery at an individual, local, national, and global level, and how we build resilience into businesses and systems going forward. Our first innovation table is a discussion with local influencers on the question of innovation at times of change. What is the playbook for businesses wanting to respond, recover, and thrive in the current crisis? So we've briefly introduced our speakers, but let's give them an opportunity to speak in a little bit more detail about their roles, their businesses, and a little bit more about them. So over to our speakers, and if I can just call on Beth Gignac first. Beth, I think you're on mute.
Because I think one of the things that we've all learned in the past couple of weeks is, am I on mute? Is probably one of the questions that most people are asking or telling each other. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us. And thanks, James and Monique, for hosting. And most of all, thanks to Trev and Connor for joining the conversation today. I'm Beth Gignac, the Chief Operating Officer at United Way Calgary area, and it's my real pleasure and privilege to be with you on the call today. I wanted to start with a little quote. I found this quote by a writer called Louis L'Amour. Some of you may be familiar with Louis L'Amour. He wrote these Western novels that were really quite popular for many, many decades. He wrote this, I thought it was really profound for today. There will come a time when you believe everything is finished. That will be the beginning. And for me, I think it's a really important context setting in terms of why I'm so excited about the lab standing up this platform of responsible disruption and thinking about what is the new beginning. So thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Beth. Trevor.
Make sure I unmute first. Thank you, James, and also thank you to the Social Impact Lab and to the United Way for the invite to join today. I think it's an incredibly important topic, and it's something that I think we should keep in our minds, not just in times like this, but as often as we can, to try and continue to push ourselves to improve processes, which I think really is the foundation of the concept of innovation. So I'm Trevor Wills, partner in Boost Energy Ventures. We are a consultancy that provides strategic advisory, transaction and valuation support, and market analytics to the energy sector, with a particular focus on electricity and electricity-related assets and business models. We were founded on the vision that we wanted to develop insight that advanced the energy transition and create societal value, in turn improving lives. And I think really that's at the core of what the United Way is doing, what the Social Impact Lab is doing, and I see an increasing meshing of all forms of business and industry in trying to push forward the ability to create societal value and improve lives.
Great, thanks very much, Trevor. And finally, Connor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to the team at United Way and the Social Lab for having me on. My name is Connor Curran. I am one of the co-owners of Local Laundry. Local Laundry is a Canadian-made clothing company that aims to build and support your community in everything that we do. Very excited to be talking about innovation and change. We run we're a pretty small team. I'm the only full-time employee. We have a great nimble team. In these past 2 weeks, we've learned all about innovation and how to change things on a dime and really, excel at it and see the opportunities here, and not only just to keep the business afloat, but how to support other people going through this, whether they're friends, family, other business owners, or just other people that kind of need some help during these times. So very excited to be here. Thank you again for having me.
Thanks very much, Connor. Okay, before we kick into the questions, we want this to be a really interactive session. So if you can please use the Q&A chat function to ask any questions that you would like us to put to the panel. We want this to be as interactive as possible, and we don't want it just to be us talking, so and just our questions. So please call out questions you want us to pass on. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, James. So I'd really like to start off this afternoon with you, Connor. And I'd like to ask you about Local Laundry's response to the first 4 weeks of this lockdown. What have you done as a local business in Calgary? And what have you seen around how others are reacting?
Yeah, great question. So for us, we're primarily retail business, probably about 50, 60, 70% of our revenue comes from retail partners, wholesale partners. That's companies and businesses with storefronts, places like Below the Belt, Marks, a lot of independent retailers, UFC campus bookstore, places like that. And within a couple of days to a week, all that shut down. So that stream of our revenue just kind of shut off. And we kind of took a hard look at ourselves and we said, okay, you know what are we going to do? And my whole thing throughout this has been, stay positive, take action. I allowed myself to be, depressed and blue about it all for about a day. And then after I was like, hey, that's not going to do any good. I'm going to stay positive and take action. And we started looking at what are some of the things that we can do to keep our business afloat, support those that need support, raise awareness, and give back. And so what we did was we decided to come out with an organic bamboo zip-up hoodie that's entirely Canadian made and that highlights healthcare workers. My wife is a nurse here at one of the local hospitals. My day-to-day hasn't changed. I still wake up every morning, drive her to work, come back home, work, pick her up. She's still on the front lines every day. And we wanted to create something that kind of highlights and showcases those frontline healthcare workers. And so we came out with this practical piece of clothing that's made out of organic bamboo cotton, which is naturally antimicrobial. Bacteria doesn't stick to it as well as other materials. It's super soft, it's sustainable. But not only that, we wanted to create something that was 100% of profits go right back to the community. So the United Way, the team at United Way Calgary has partnered with the city of Calgary to create a fantastic COVID-19 community relief fund that helps those that are most vulnerable, that are most need, elderly, disabled, homeless. And so we wanted to support their initiative by making 100% of the profits of the sweater goes right back to this COVID-19 community relief fund. And the response that we've seen from the healthcare community, our customers, has just been phenomenal. These things have kind of taken a life of its own. And while, we're not making any profit from them, we've raised over $10,000 for this COVID-19 community relief fund. And we just get like the flurry of kind words that these customers and healthcare workers, my wife included, have been sending us has just been phenomenal. So we've really kind of taken upon ourselves, stay positive, take action. Now's not the time to kind of take your foot off the accelerator. It's not the time to just wait for this to be over and to pout. It's about, getting in there and seeing what kind of difference you can make. Even if it's not a big difference, just getting in there and seeing how you can adapt quickly, keep your business afloat, and support those that need the most support during these times.
Thanks, Connor. And I mean, what a wonderful way to start. I appreciate that you said, you took a day to kind of get yourself and I guess kind of position yourself for, I'm going to deal with this. This is one day. But maybe you could speak to a bit about what made it so possible for you to respond so quickly. You took that day, but what happened after that?
Well, I think it is important. I mean, this is a dire situation, right? This is like something none of us have ever been through. So I think we need to take that time for ourselves to decompress, absorb process the information, but you can't get bogged down in news. I mean, if you're on the internet all day, on Twitter all day, watching CNN nonstop, you're just all this negativity is going to come at you, and it's going to have a subconscious effect and just really, really bring you down. So you have to be really careful to not let that anxiety, not let that stress kind of seep in and take hold and take over. So the enemy of anxiety and stress is and has always been for me action. So just taking action. So we just kind of took that time, and then, thankfully, because we're a pretty small team, we don't have any brick and mortar stores ourselves. We were able to take a look back and say, okay, what assets do we have? Let's do an inventory count. Let's see what is still operating. Let's talk with our supply chain. Are you still able to manufacture? Are you still able to fulfill? And then we just have a meeting, and how can we use what assets we have that are still up and running for now, and how can we take it to meet our customers where they're at, and every night we go to bed and we wake up and it's a different world from the one that we left. And so it's taking it day by day, adapting day by day, just focusing on let's get through the day, let's survive the day, and let's worry about tomorrow when we get there, and just not letting that stress and anxiety really, really bring you down. Because you can't, if you let it, it will take you down. It will take you down hard, and it'll keep you down. So you have to really, like I said, limit the amount of news, get your exercise, take your vitamin D, get outside, get that sunshine in your face, and just take a deep breath and say, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to take action? How are we going to get through this?
Thanks for sharing that, Connor. I think a couple really great points, but certainly the concept of, being aware of where you are, but also meeting your customers where they are.
Totally.
And being nimble and being responsive to those operational needs that you've had to adjust. So thanks for sharing that.
My pleasure.
I'm wondering if we could go to you, Beth, and maybe you can share with us how United Way has responded over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we within 72 hours, we stood up a response fund that Connor has referenced. We worked in partnership with the Calgary Emergency Management Agency, the City of Calgary, the Calgary Foundation. A number of other partners have come on stream with us in the last couple of weeks, the Calgary Health Trust, the Calgary Homeless Foundation. And really, we came together quite quickly and made a really good decision, I think, and a quick decision. Our job is to help people who are most vulnerable in our community. That's why United Way exists. That's what we believe in. That's our mantra. That's our vision. Creating a strong community where everyone thrives and the conditions for that success. We just said, that's great. This is our mission. We're going to live it. And we're going to live it quickly, and we're going to stand up a whole bunch of new stuff that needs to happen right away. And I'm really proud of the team, of volunteers and our staff team. We just really rallied together and did that within 72 hours. At the same time, we also created an application form in a way for agencies and people who are working in the front line in the community to be able to apply to those funds. And we made that a really easy process. Check a couple boxes, tell us what your outcomes are. We'll stay in touch with you on the regular, which we've been doing. Our team has been tapped into and working with many different agency partners on the ground on a range of different issues, not only connected to the grants and the fundraising efforts, but very much about what do you need now? And those are things like basic needs, food, water, sanitation, the very basic needs that each one of us have that allow us to be able to stay on our feet. That's really been what our focus has been in the first couple of weeks. Our team is now starting to think about what is the community going to need? What are the social service agencies and the sector going to need? What are each of us as individuals going to need? And I start thinking about ideas like, well, what is a story that I want to tell myself about myself in these moments going forward? What is the story we want to tell ourselves as a community about ourselves going forward? Not only in the now. So to Connor's point, it's really a great point. Yeah, you have to be aware of where we're at in the moment. And you're right, Connor, it is a different day every day that we get up. And I'm in a position right now of really relative privilege. And it's I feel a responsibility and my duty to actually do everything that I can and our organization can in order to be that lift up into the community. So that's really what United Way has been focusing on, and starting to also think about the next phase of our new reality.
Thanks, Beth. I'm curious if you could share one thing, because a large organization like United Way standing up a fund very quickly, a response fund. What was the biggest takeaway during that time of rallying a team together that you could share with this group?
Everyone said yes. I mean, everyone has said yes, and yes quickly, and they've responded quickly, and everyone has been in it, as I like to say, in it to win it. But everybody really has been super focused about that. It's really told me a lot about what's possible now, and it's had me ask questions. Well, why isn't this always possible? And there are some really key learnings that I'm observing as we're going through this process of what's been holding us back, what's real, what isn't real, because everyone is actually saying, of course, these are the things that we need to do. And of course, this is how we need to respond as a community. And of course, basic needs are the things that we need to support and lean into. Everybody needs that. And so it's really been quite an interesting series of conversations. This is what's real. This is what's always been real. And that for me has been a super big takeaway. Everyone says yes. I was on calls all morning this morning, and again, people, yes, what do I need to do? How can I lean into this? How can I bring my resources to bear, if they're human resources, physical resources, whatever that means. And this in and of itself as a conversation is a resource, right? It's a resource opportunity in our community. So, and for our conversations globally that need to start to happen. So everyone says yes, which is awesome.
Thanks, Beth. And to your point, it is real, right? This crisis has affected all of us, and it's also affecting our economy. A demand at a time of plummeting oil prices. And Trevor, as a partner at the global energy consultancy firm, you're seeing this firsthand. And what would you say are some of the responses that you're seeing from your clients?
Yeah, one of the things I would say that's been uniform across all of our clients, and maybe quickly I'll mention we work across Canada, the U.S., and the UK. So we do have touch points into a broad number of cities in North America as well as a few in Europe. And so it's been certainly interesting times in seeing how all of those organizations have responded to this. But I'd say universally across the board, the first thing that all of them did was move to make sure that their people were okay and taken care of, so that they could make sure that their clients were okay and taken care of. And by our clients, I mean all of us. Broadly speaking, I think the energy sector, but also all types of sectors that reach out across the social landscape to provide the quality of life that we enjoy on a day-to-day basis, didn't miss a step. They didn't blink. They didn't think. They just completely repositioned their businesses, moved people into distributed working platforms, made sure that their critical operations would continue to function on a day-over-day basis, and showed almost no sign of concern, fear, stress from an emotional perspective or from a financial perspective before making sure that we would all continue to be able to live our lives comfortably by providing the services that they provide. So I think that I would say that uniformly across the board, that was the reaction that we saw from our clients in major energy, development, the financial sector, technology. Everybody responded in exactly the same way. And, I think maybe even extending it into the technology sphere, the fact that we're all having this conversation right now on a piece of technology, how many people had to go and install extra switching gear and extra IT capabilities to respond to the 50% uptick or 500% uptick in bandwidth that then consumed additional energy to keep it all running, and we didn't even hit a speed bump. So I think that that's a credit to all of the industries that all came together and responded in exactly the same way to create the seamless nature to which we've been able to respond, to cope, and to rationalize what we might do next.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that. So, it's interesting that there really wasn't a varied response, even though you're dealing in multiple geographies and varying technologies. I'm curious if you could speak to a bit of what you might see now around new business opportunities that might be taking place as a result of this.
Absolutely. And I think, that's where some of the variation starts to come in, because as the different types of client sets are in different resource positions and in different opportunity or different ability sets to manage the changes, we're seeing some folks just, and I'll actually split it into a couple of different buckets. The first bucket is, that priority of keeping things running and making sure that everybody's okay. That's absolutely happening. And I think you're going to see some businesses that are sacrificing themselves in order to keep that stuff going. Likely there are going to be some businesses that don't make it through. But I think conversely, and very positively, there are other businesses that are viewing this as a means by which to reinvent themselves. And so they're thinking about how they change for the future, how they redesign for the future. And I think this is exactly the right time to be doing that. But I think, when I talk about some of the businesses that are having difficulty, I don't think we should count anybody out, because again, across the board, I think what we're going to see is tremendous resiliency. There's going to be different capabilities and abilities of different people inside of those industries that I mentioned to respond and react. But I think every one of them is doing absolutely everything they can to make sure that they come out of this in a better stead than how they entered. And I think, one of the things I find very encouraging is that we're seeing people take steps towards forming new business models faster than how they were moving before this occurred. So I think actually what it's done is push people to reconsider what was holding them back. Did they have the right perception of risk? Should they have been doing it faster? And so in many ways, I think it's going to serve as a catalyst to push people forward. And, the part I would really underscore is to not underestimate the resiliency of every single one of the individuals inside of those organizations and every single organization itself. I think that if they all take that view, and if every individual and every organization takes that view, there's no reason that everybody doesn't come back stronger than how they entered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I think it's really interesting to think about how we're going to be in a time of innovation around our business models and about understanding relevance at the same time while we're trying to be resilient. So I think maybe we could look to see if there's any specific questions that might have come out from our viewers.
Yes, thanks, Monique. I'm just looking at the feed now. A couple of questions for Connor. You mentioned that you aren't profiting from the Relief Fund hoodie, but are you seeing increased sales on other products as the community rallies to support small businesses such as yours? Is this considered a cause marketing win on your end?
Yeah, absolutely. We really subscribe to the notion that, just because we're a business doesn't mean we can't have a good social impact. Just because we're a small business doesn't mean we can't have a big social impact, and we're really seeing our customers step up. We kind of put it out there. I think it's not business as usual. So if you kind of go out there with your marketing and same as always, it's same as always has been, it's not going to work. So we just kind of put it out there saying, look, a lot of small businesses are not going to get through this, and they're not going to get through this without your help. So we kind of put it out there and say, you know what, we need your help. We are all in dire times, and those that can help, we need your help. We did a few other things, like we put 25% off our entire store, free shipping. And yes, while we're not making any profits off these organic bamboo healthcare zip-up sweaters, we see a lot of people step up and order other things, friends, family, people I went to high school with, people that have never ordered before. I've taken this opportunity to order and really support. So I definitely do see it as a win-win. And right now, as a small business, now's not the time to think about, how can I make a profit? How can I do this, that? Now is the time to think about, how can I stay afloat? How can I take care of those that took care of us? And how can we support those in the community that need the support now more than ever? And so absolutely, we've seen our customers and our community really step up, and we can thank them on that.
Cool. Got another question from Michelle. Is Local Laundry participating in the Bits and Pieces program?
Yeah, great question. So we actually don't have, we don't own any of our manufacturing. All of our manufacturing partners are all over Canada. Most of them are still operating. One of our biggest ones shut down due to the safety of their workers. They want to make sure that it's safe places to work. But our other manufacturers, they definitely switched. They started making masks, they started making gowns, anything that they could do to help. And that's what is really important to us, because we're a Canadian manufacturer, because all of our production is right here. That pre-sale, even though we're not making any profit, all that money goes back towards supporting Canadian workers in a diverse Canadian economy. And so everyone who supports us and during this time is not only supporting us, but our whole Canadian supply chain. Everything we make is dyed, knitted, milled, sewn, printed, shipped by a Canadian worker. So when you support a small business, you're not just supporting, one small business, you're supporting the whole Canadian supply chain. And we've been very proud of our Canadian manufacturers and the ways that they've stepped up to either take care of the safety of their workers during times like this, or, step up and produce, healthcare manufactured goods that are most needed during times like this.
Cool. Thanks, Connor. A question for Beth from Diana P. It is great to hear local efforts and successes. As a collective, wondering the collaborative efforts and thoughts in working with other social impact labs within Canada and outside.
Yeah, that's a great question. We all do actually participate in a number of different innovation collectives across Canada, and actually through the United Way movement across our network globally. So all of us are kind of tied into different kinds of labs and different kinds of initiatives. And we're, in fact, just yesterday, I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine in Chattanooga, Tennessee, who actually has a social impact lab or social innovation lab. And we were talking about opportunities for collaboration. And in fact, it's one of the episodes that'll be coming up on this platform, Responsible Disruption, in about 3 or 4 weeks. We're going to be collecting some folks who actually run different kinds of social innovation or social impact labs, and putting together another panel for people to be able to talk about how we're starting to connect with one another. There's a lot of great learnings that happen all over the world in this space. And yeah, we're actively humming right along and reaching out to folks to try to figure out what's happening right now and how people are responding in their local communities, so we can learn and bring some of those learnings here. One of the learnings that we're exporting out into that space is some of the training programs and capacity building programs that we have at our Social Impact Lab. We've been running a program called Inspire almost since the day we opened our doors 2 years ago, which is really about teaching design thinking, human-centered design as a practice, and helping people rethink their business models and reconsider their business models and their approaches to their business, and leveraging our unique partnership with United Way and all of those other networks globally to bring some of those learnings into that space. So we're actually going to be launching our next cohort of Inspire in May. And if you're interested in that, check out the program at the Social Impact Lab site. One of the other things that we're also doing is launching our Open City platform, which is a new digital platform. And that's going to be going live in a number of different communities across the country, Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal within the next few weeks. And that'll again be an opportunity for engagement to make sure that those diverse voices are being heard, and that many of the cool stuff that's actually happening and really important stuff that's going on across Canada is actually becoming known across the networks. And we're also in touch with groups like Social Innovation Canada and some of those other movements that are happening across Canada for sure. So a couple of different tools, training programs. There are some opportunities for you to find out some of those links and some of those resources on our Social Impact Lab website as we built them. And that Open City dialogue platform will also be launched as a part of this responsible disruption piece going forward.
Cool, thanks, Beth. Roger Nair makes a statement, but I guess it's a question also that I'll put to Trev. Businesses today have got business continuity plans, but going forward, they will need a business resiliency model also, which has an emotional and social component. Is that something that you're seeing businesses actually have, or is that something they're having to rush to put in place?
Yeah, I would say that the vast majority of businesses have already done a good amount of thinking on that front. It may not necessarily have been as advertised or as promoted as some of the other things that they're doing, but I think increasingly there's a global realization that it's increasingly difficult to do much of anything without a social purpose. And so I think at the core of social purpose is exactly what you're talking about. It's the foundation of resiliency. It's the individual empathy that's required to ensure that your organization functions correctly and that you're interfacing with all the touch points that you have as a business correctly. So I think that there is likely to be a push towards more decentralization to get closer to the needs and closer to the needs and the ability to understand the local markets that you're operating it in. And I think that distributed nature of business is likely to drive more agility, and out of agility comes resiliency. So I think that while that is not a concept that's necessarily been as well articulated as perhaps it should have been, there is the underpinning of that in all of the businesses that I referred to in kind of the opening statement that I made around how quickly all of those businesses sprang into action to ensure that nothing dropped, that no ball was dropped, that nobody was left out. And I would say that that's going to be certainly coming out of this something that people look to define better, and hopefully is a conversation that we can continue to push and continue to advance.
Good, thank you. Gillian Marr asks, all of you talked about how this is a great time for innovation because we are focusing on what really matters. What kinds of barriers are we seeing organizations break through, and what was holding us back? And I think that speaks to the sort of narrative here, which is, potentially this is a great time to innovate. So, Beth, can I put that to you? Sort of what barriers, what was holding us back before, and what makes this a great time to innovate?
I think one of the barriers, is really around what we've been taught is possible. And one of the challenges I've been giving myself over the past 6 months is what do I need to unlearn in order for me to be able to see what is in fact possible? So it kind of sounds like a, esoteric question, but it's actually a really serious question to step outside of yourself and say, what have I been taught I should expect from these systems, from these people, from these practices. And yet what we're seeing right now are most of those expectations are completely irrelevant. So there's all these false constructs that, have been created through, social constructs, economic constructs, etc., power constructs. Many of them are false. And what we're seeing is that there's really a lack of resilience in some of those systems and some of those practices and some of those processes. But what we are seeing is that individuals are highly resilient to, what Trevor's talking about. Resiliency is really kind of foundational to all of this, but resiliency right now is very, very individual. So when I look at an answer to this question, I think, well, I have to unlearn expectations that I've been taught around the systems that I have around me. And in holding myself somewhat apart from the situation, to be able to think both in the moment and on the moment, to give myself that space and to try to capture those learnings, those new learnings and those new insights as they're happening, I think is a really critical practice that each of us, can really lean into right now.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Just building on that, you talked about the systems that we've had in place sort of breaking down, and individuals are probably more able to act now because of those systems breaking down. Will we have to build new systems as a result of this? And how do you see that happening?
I mean, I think absolutely you have to build new systems. In fact, I think they're being built right before our eyes. I think that when you look at how people are developing workarounds and different kinds of relationships, what's happening, all of those silos, real or perceived, are disappearing. They're disintegrating. And people are really focusing on, as Trevor says, the purpose, the intention. Shared outcomes, I think, are becoming quite clear. I think that what we're starting to understand is what is really valuable. Is really pretty basic. I think it's always been understood. I think, again, that there have been stories that we've told ourselves that are about things that are valuable that are not. So absolutely new systems are going to need to be created. And again, our Social Impact Lab, in my opinion, is perfectly situated, as are other labs and other people who are in this practice space all over the world. We're in an ideal situation here to actually do some of that proto-thinking now, and to invite people as they're ready to participate and bring those learnings from the ground into these spaces, so that we can start to design and create new systems with a high degree of intentionality towards inclusiveness, not exclusiveness, towards leveling the playing field, and towards really understanding what sustainability is going to mean for us as individuals, as communities, as countries, as economies. This is a really, interesting space and a tremendous opportunity for us. And I feel that, locally, we're positioned to be able to be a good participant in that conversation, not only for our local community, but as part of that global conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Trevor, can I put something to you? So we heard from Premier Kenny yesterday on TV, and he talked about, what the projections and predictions were for the economy in Alberta, and when the peak would be or potential peak would be in cases of COVID-19 in Alberta. It strikes me that, some of those predictions were pretty broad. And there's so many studies out there which are predicting multiple lockdowns, or maybe there is herd immunity developing that we don't know about. I think we're really struggling with a lack of data now, and organizations and businesses are now needing to think also about post-lockdown. But how can we really talk about that when there's so much uncertainty out there?
No, that's a great question. Thank you for the easy one. I think that that's a part of why we need to move our thinking downstream a little bit into distributed units where we have more agility and an ability to respond to changing situations. Because I think the reality is there is no one solution, and there is no one system that's going to help us recover from this quickly. And what we need to do is try to develop, to use an analogy, you need more than one play to win a football game. And so I think what we want to do is develop a comprehensive playbook of different plays that we can run in different situations, so that based on the trajectory that we do travel, we have the toolkit available in order to react in real time to the challenges that are presenting themselves. And I think that's, again, I'll say that that's something that's useful at the individual level, and at the large organization level. I think that's the right approach under uncertainty, is to try to understand how you might react in a variety of other conditions. And the other point that I would make is that being discerning about the information that you're ingesting, and calmly reading it and analyzing it, I think is critical to maintaining the poise and the calm that's necessary to move forward productively. I think that with all of the things that are swirling, it's easy to get inundated with a lot of negativity, and it's important to be discerning and to truly try to sit back and take in the information in a way that's helpful to you. And maybe I'll relay a personal story because it was helpful to me. We were sitting at the dinner table the other day, and I have a young daughter, and she was talking to somebody she was talking to her grandmother on FaceTime about something that she couldn't go out and do because of the virus, or because of the sickness, I think is what she said. But then, without taking a breath, she said, "But when the sickness is gone, I'm going to go and do this." And I think really what that did to me was underscore that at the most basic level, a small child who doesn't have a real grasp of exactly what's happening and doesn't have the ability to get inundated with all of the different information points and data points and headlines is already taking a positive view to the situation, to saying, "But when this is done, this is what I'm going to go out and enjoy." So I think if we try to keep that in the back of our minds as we navigate whatever path this takes, it will help to keep us calm as we develop and execute the playbook that we write.
Yeah, I like that. The concept of sort of big thinking, but also that tactical ingenuity and action that in a playbook that we can just employ as and when. Good, thank you. I'm just looking at the feed. Connor. An anonymous attendee asks, Connor, do you think more small local businesses will be born out of this pandemic and mass layoff because people will move over to a more entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah, you know what? I'll be entirely honest. I'm not sure. I know this is not like any kind of mass layoff that happened before. I know I started Local Laundry. Local Laundry was founded right after I got laid off in 2014 from an oil and gas engineer firm. But I think this is going to be a little bit different. I don't know if a lot of small businesses will be born. What I do know is that the support for small businesses in local is going to be at an all-time high. It's at an all-time high right now. And once people are getting back to work, once there's a lot more certainty out there and people have a little bit more disposable income, people can go out to restaurants and bars, they're going to be going and supporting local hard. I can tell you that for when people are allowed to go back outside again and hang out with buddies. And another big thing I think that we're going to see from this is people not only going to be supporting small business and local, but people are going to be supporting Canadian manufacturing a lot more. It's always been an uphill battle since we onshored our business operations and switched to Canadian manufacture to really educate the public on why our clothes are more expensive than your average t-shirt and sweater company. And I think what we're going to see out of this is people willing to pay more. They're actually going to be looking at labels. Where is their food being made? Where is their clothes being made? And wanting to spend the extra dollar to support Canadian manufacturing, knowing that you're not only supporting one business, but a whole entire Canadian supply chain and a diversified Canadian economy and companies among that supply chain that adhere to strict Canadian labor and environmental laws. So I don't know if there'll be a lot more small businesses and entrepreneurs popping up. I certainly hope so. I mean, if you ever thought about starting a small business, now is the time. There is no better time than now. If you're laid off or you have to work from home, I started this company with $50 in my pocket. I started on Shopify. I didn't know the first thing about e-commerce, clothing. I still don't know that much about fashion. but I learned it all. It didn't cost me anything more than $50 in a couple hours. So now is the perfect opportunity. So if you're thinking about starting a small business, especially one that can give back and support the community, there is no better time like this. I'd advise anyone to go start a t-shirt company, because if someone like me who had no clue what to do and did not know how to do it and is still learning and figuring everything out day by day can do it, you certainly can do it, because I imagine there's a lot more smarter people out there than me. So I really do hope, though, that when all this is over, people will, go out, support. My parents own a local restaurant here in town. They're struggling being closed. So I hope when we are allowed to go back out, people will support hard. And I think, 6-12 months from now, I really do hope people start reading the labels, and maybe take a second guess, and rather than saving a buck. And I get the importance of saving a buck here or there. I really do. But when you can, choose to support Canadian made.
Great. Thanks, Connor. Monique, do you want to jump in now?
Yeah, thanks, James. I was just going to say, I think it's about voting with your dollar. And we all have an opportunity now, if we think about, our dollars as a sense of leadership, right? If we're thinking about how we're going to lead during these times of change, not only with our dollars, but in our roles, maybe we can take a few moments just to talk about, as leaders, what are the behaviors that we need to be exhibiting during these times of change. And maybe, Beth, we could start with you. If you can share with our viewers what you think are some of those leadership behaviors that we should be embracing.
Fearlessness. I think that's a good one. I think, faithfulness in terms of our capacity and our individual capability to connect with each other. Confidence that we have all the tools in our toolkit to create the playbook that we need. Enthusiasm, relentless enthusiasm, to boldly take the day as it comes to you. Kindness, humor. Lately I've been carb loading. I don't know if that's one I would necessarily encourage, unless it's maybe, Alberta wheat, but I think that those are some of the attributes, and I'm lucky. I have a great partner. I have great parents, great family supports, great friends, great networks. I think that there are a lot of people who don't. And I think that making sure that compassion and empathy is right at the front of all of that, and that it is not about me. It is about us, and it is keeping that idea front and center for me is really important.
Thanks for that, Beth. I'm curious, Trevor, if you're seeing any of these types of behaviors in the organizations that you're working with, and if so, is there anything that's striking a chord with how you're seeing them also innovate as a result of that?
Yeah, I think the key word that Beth used was empathy. I think that organizations and industries that people don't typically associate with empathy are showing an incredible amount of it, both at the leadership level and just pervasively through the organization. And so, I'd say that is one of the best and most critical qualities to ensuring that we do well through this. I think on a move forward basis, I think one of the parts I found most encouraging, and it goes back to one of the comments that was made about what was stopping us. I think that has become a question: what was stopping us? And I've seen a number of leaders and a number of companies and a number of individuals blow through barriers that before seemed relatively insurmountable, and just got things done that previously seemed like they would take weeks or months or years, and they did them overnight because it was actually, it just became more evident that there was actually nothing that was stopping them from doing it. And I think having the courage as a leader to just make the call, knowing that perhaps when this is all done, there will be some consequence in some of those decisions. I think having the courage to move in that direction is a part of what's going to it's a part of what's going to foster innovation, and it's what's going to allow us to structure into better systems when we come out the other side of this particular issue.
Thanks for that. I'm curious, we talk about empathy, and there's a question that's come through, and Do you think there is a potential, as the adrenaline from surviving this current crisis decreases, where companies may lose the momentum that they've started, right? There could be a sense of exhaustion or fear just that might be keeping them from surviving. And what can we do to maybe support the employees and companies that might be facing those kinds of situations?
Yeah, I think that, I'll go back to the story I just told. I think we really need to embrace the calm mentality that there will be a day where we don't need to debate all of the issues that are currently unfolding, where we're not going to have to worry about whether or not there might or might not be another lockdown, or, put it differently, the sun will shine again. So I think that we need to embrace the reality of where we are today and face that head on. And definitely we need to deal with those issues. And we need to keep assuming that that could continue perhaps for, weeks, months, no one knows quite how long. We have to keep viewing it with that same resolve, but know that we will reach a point where things will be better again. In fact, will be better than they ever were before we started. So I think that, by encouraging that mindset, and by continuing to reach out to the people around us, I think, to answer your question more directly about how can we support and encourage that, make a list of 20 people that you haven't talked to for a year or more, who either was somebody that was close to you or somebody that you worked with and you haven't caught up with in a while, and give them a call. Let's start working down those lists, because I think just that, hey, how are you doing? How are things with you? How are things with your family? How are things at work? You're doing a great job. Keep going. If we all make a list of 20 people and call those people that we haven't talked to in a while, I think that's a part of what we can use to push through this and to help individuals and leaders to get through and to not tire out, because I think that's absolutely right. Fatigue is an issue at times of crisis and normally as well. And I think we can't afford to be fatigued. I think we need to take that on as an individual challenge, each of us, to try and go and support everybody. And I think if we do that, it'll start coming back to us too. So I think if we lean on each other to foster that type of support, then the fatigue issue will go away.
I think that's a great kind of segue into this understanding of community. And I think, wonderful to make a list and we can all reach out to each other. I'm curious about whether any of you, and maybe I'll put this to Connor, being a small business owner, what types of conversations are you having with other business owners in order to support each other, and how are you learning from each other?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, like to Beth and Trevor's point, now is the best time to reach out to small business owners. If you know a small business owner, or even in our small business community, we reached out to people that have always, all small business owners have 1,000 things to do. But times like this, now everyone's available, and so we've reached out to people that we've had meetings with once or twice that have always been flat out busy, and just use it as an opportunity to reach out to our mentors, to people that have a lot more experience than us, and just to sit down, have a social happy hour, where we're all on a Zoom call like this, and everyone's having a beer and that kind of thing, and just saying, like, business owner, like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What are you worried about? Is there anything that we can do to help? One of the things that we like doing is we have a decent sized social following. So any other small business that's trying to stay afloat and giving back to the community, we push that hard out on our social media. We create blogs around a list of all the other businesses that are doing home deliveries or discounts for AHS workers, that kind of thing, and we push that out there. But I think it's like, to Trevor's point, you just need to make a list and reach out to people that you haven't reached out to. I mean, and do things differently. I've never talked to my family as much as I have during these times. I never spent time with my friends as much as I have during these times. Every night, me and like a bunch of guys from university, we get together and play board games online, and we've never done that. And so now is a really great opportunity. And to be vulnerable, to be like, it's really getting me. This stuff's really getting me. Or to be that rock for someone, be that supportive person for your family, for your team members, for that other business owner. You just say, this is all temporary. Eventually, like Jarvis said, the sun will shine again. We're going to get through this. We're going to be stronger than we went before. Be that supportive person for for that person. Be there for anyone and everyone, whether it's your family, your team, or just another small business owner. I think that's the best thing that we can do, and to really support one another and just say, hey, how are you doing? How's your mental health? I'm just checking in. Let me know if you need anything.
Thanks, Connor. Maybe we could swing it over to Beth for a second. And Beth, maybe you could speak to some of the systems that might be available in the city to support Calgarians.
Yeah, we're really lucky. We have a lot of people in this community who are doing incredible work all day, every day, and you have been doing incredible work all day, every day in terms of critical supports for all of us. I'd encourage people, if you are feeling heaviness and you are feeling really distressed, call 211. The folks at the Distress Center are wonderful, trained experts. They can help you figure out what kind of supports you might need for yourself. It's mental health supports, food security supports, whatever kinds of things that you might need. I would encourage you to call 211. If you're interested in volunteering, there's a great Facebook page. I just love this. And, I talked to them probably 24 hours into all of this. They stood up this Facebook page, YYC COVID Facebook support page for volunteers, people in Calgary. These are Calgarians doing things for other Calgarians. It's a great group of community folks who are just so excited to be participating and actively contributing. And if you're interested in that kind of activity, I'd encourage you to reach out into that space. I think that, like Connor and Trevor are saying, we have a lot of family support networks. Reach out to them, your friends, etc. Use technology, use whatever you have to do. But know that there is a strong network here in our community of experts who can help you. And if you need that help, you should ask for it. If you don't know who else to call us at United Way. Send us an email, send us a note, reach out to us on social media channels. Our teams know how to connect you with who you might need to connect with for professional services and support. So feel free to do that. We also have a great partnership with the City of Calgary. There's a great initiative in our community hubs initiative, and there's a cool program going on around Hello Neighbor. In fact, next week we're launching an awareness campaign here in Calgary about neighbor-to-neighbor supports. So look for that. It's going to be called Hello, United Apart. And that's going to be a good way for us to be able to share and communicate our energy and also our needs to help each other through these challenging times. So there are supports out there, folks.
Great. Thanks, Beth. Maybe we could do one last question, and maybe we could swing it over to you, Connor. But, things happened really quickly, and if I'm a small business owner out there and I haven't figured out what I'm going to do next, is there one place you'd suggest where I should start?
Absolutely. I would first, take a deep breath, start with yourself, calm your own mind, calm yourself, and then put it out to your team. Make sure they're okay, reassure them, let them know that everything's going to be okay. But then just do a quick inventory report. What revenue streams are still active? What have taken a hit? What are my assets? What can I still do? How can I change some of those to further increase those existing revenue streams? And now, really focus on, taking that inventory report, seeing what you can do, but really understand that now's not the time to worry about profit. Now's the time to keep afloat. Now's the time to build goodwill in the community, figure out ways that you as a business, you can use that as a vehicle to give back and support your community, support your people, be there. But I would just really say, take an inventory count, see what you can do. How can you change things around? Have an open mind, talk to the people that you need to talk to, like your bank or your accountant, and just take it day by day, because every day this thing is changing. And if we start getting down that rabbit hole, this is going to be going on for another couple of weeks, couple of months, forever. You're going to drive yourself crazy. Take a deep breath, take an inventory count, see what you can do, and take it day by day.
Thanks, Connor. So we've come to time. So we're going to be wrapping up for today. We'd really like to thank everyone for attending Responsible Disruption and our innovation table discussion. A special thanks to our guests, Beth Gignac, Trevor Wills, and Connor Curran, for their engaging conversation and insights. Just a reminder that this was recorded today, and we'll be providing the recorded link through email, and you'll also be able to find it on our YouTube channel. And our next innovation table session is next week on creating a culture of possibility. So if you have a superpower and a super set skill and you're looking to figure out how to continue to engage in this conversation with the lab, we have available Open City, as Beth has shared, but you can also find us on Instagram, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn. And we also are looking for volunteers with those great superpowers to continue to help us move this work forward. Thank you very much. Stay safe and stay healthy.